recording, and I have a lapel mic, but no lapel. That's par for the course. And today, I wanted to talk about time. I had written an article called It's About Time, and you can see it on the YouTube homepage. Nobody's looking at it. And I really enjoyed that article, and then I realized that the article, the hook for the article when you read it is different than what it must be for a YouTube video. So what I wanted to give you in this episode is some insight into Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse series. And there's also another author, I would get the name wrong if I tried to say it, but he wrote, I think one of his books is entitled Forbidden Archaeology, and it goes down that same path that human interaction on Earth, humans, probably modern humans, have been on Earth far longer than what modern science likes to tell us. And I feel that Graham Hancock is pretty much silencing his critics at this point, because the latest technology, which is employed in his series, substantiates what he's saying to a great degree. And if he's right, and I'm pretty certain that he is right, more and more stuff will come out until that becomes the accepted timeline for human civilization. My complaint, and it's not really a complaint, it's a minor, if there was a complaint with Graham Hancock's point of view, would be that, and he's being cautious here, he doesn't go back far enough. The forbidden archaeology, gentlemen, goes way back, millions of years. And it's as hard to believe as that might be, that is probably right, according to the writings of my research. And that's why we're doing this on time today, today I want to show you where these writings intersect the timeline of human civilization and the existence of modern humans. So to have this happen before 12,000 years ago, we need to find lots and lots of time with humans in it. And so that's where these writings come in. And so here we go. And this is I'm just going to go through the quotations and kind of talk about them here. The first one is this quote here. We cannot say then that there was a time when man was not. At most, we can say there was a time when this earth did not exist, and that at the beginning, man was not present upon it. End of quote. Maybe you've heard that before. My guess would be probably you haven't. And again, this is from the writings, the Baha'i writings. This is little known mystical Eastern faith that has a lot to say about a lot of different things for a reason. Not terribly relevant here why they say all of this stuff. And then there's another quotation I think you might applies to this. And this quotation is as follows. As to thy question concerning the origin of creation, know assuredly that God's creation hath existed from eternity, and will continue to exist forever. Its beginning hath no beginning, and its end knoweth no end. His name, the Creator, presupposeth a creation, even as his title, the Lord of men, must involve the existence of a servant. Now, I think most monotheistic religions, and most religions in general, you have the idea that God is infinite, but here it's saying that his creation is likewise infinite. And in other places, these writings will talk about the universe being illimitable, unlimited, infinite, has always existed. That's a concept that is very difficult for human beings to wrap their mind around. And now, in this series, and in all of my research, I am going with the idea that the word, and words are very important here, translations and the use of them are very specific with religions. They're being terribly careful to make sure they use exactly the right word. Especially this faith that I am researching, the writings that have been translated from the original Arabic and Persian were translated by someone designated by the founding messenger of this faith through the system that he himself laid out to translate these writings. So we know that he was being as accurate as possible in the best Oxford English to give you exactly what it's supposed to mean. And they use the word men. That's the point. Doesn't say humans, doesn't say human beings. I'm looking at my quotations, by the way, and I have a couple of notes on these, but this whole thing is pretty unscripted, except for the quotes. I want to make sure I get them right. Doesn't say Homo sapiens or human beings, it says men. And it is not a reference to gender, it's a reference to mankind. I'm pretty sure that's what they mean, is a references to mankind. And in other places, these writings show that mankind is not just us. It's more than just us. And I've mentioned that in several other videos, that the number of kingdoms in the physical creation is just 4. Mineral, vegetable, animal, and man in physical creation. Now, I was discussing this with some followers of this particular faith. I have some friends that are Baha'is, and we were talking about this, and we were talking about Sabe people, the Sasquatch. And they said that, well, yeah, that you might be right with that, but that probably does not apply to things that are not actually in physical creation. Angels would be an obvious one, that angels are not part of they're a spiritual being, and so they would not have the same soul as someone in the kingdom of mankind. So in my research of these writings and in the articles that I have written especially about the Sabe people or Sasquatch, whatever you want to call them, I am presuming that they are part of physical creation. The things that I have heard from the channels that I follow and the things that I have seen around my place lead me to believe that they are a physical being, although they may well be interdimensional. And I don't know anything about other dimensions other than, sleep at this point. So, if it turns out that the Sabe people are not part of physical creation, which I doubt, then this might not apply. But if I'm right and they are part of physical creation, then the term mankind also applies to them. Okay, so let's go on. One more step. We're talking about time primarily here, ancient apocalypse time, that 12,000 years ago, the Younger Dryas, huge flood, people start over. Okay, and a lot of scientists think that modern humans showed up about 300,000 years ago. Here's the next quotation. God hath raised up prophets and revealed books as numerous as the creatures of the world, and will continue to do so to everlasting. Now that's a little different than what you get in most religious teachings. Possibly not the Puranas, the Indian Puranas, their history. They say things like that. And what that tells you is that this faith I'm researching, Baha'i faith, doesn't think that they're the last faith. The revelation of the Creator does not end with them. It goes on. Okay, so now let's go back to earlier messengers of God. And don't care if you believe in them. Look at it from a purely historical perspective if you want to. And in fact, very, very few people in the world, they all tend to think that their religion is the only true religion. This faith doesn't do that. But about older religions, it says this, and it gives us some insight into the kind of time that Graham Hancock is talking about. Know thou that the absence of any reference to them, prophets before Adam, is no proof that they did not actually exist. That no records concerning them are now available should be attributed to their extreme remoteness, as well as to the vast changes which the earth hath undergone since their time. Well, we all know the earth has undergone some major changes. Some of these earlier messengers are mentioned in various books in this religious library, and I had never heard of a bunch of them before I started looking this stuff up. So that's an interesting phrase. Know thou that the absence of any reference to them is no proof that they did not actually exist. Boy, that's the argument of ufology, is it not? I mean, for a long while we didn't have tangible evidence of a whole lot of things that ufology believes in, and that was no argument that they didn't exist. It's like the old saying, we only have to be right once, and the skeptics have to be right 100% of the time. I think we're way beyond that now. So we've got in the Graham Hancock series, Ancient Apocalypse, they're talking about Göbekli Tepe, and they're talking about, they've discovered that it was intentionally buried. Okay, listen to this quotation. When a cycle comes to a close, a new one is inaugurated, and the previous cycle, on account of the momentous events which transpire, vanishes so entirely from memory as to leave behind no record or trace. Life on this earth is very ancient, not 100 or 200,000 or even 1 or 2 million years old. It is ancient indeed, and the records and traces of ancient times have been entirely obliterated. Each of the manifestations of God has likewise a cycle, wherein his religion and his law are in full force and effect. When his cycle is ended through the advent of a new manifestation, a new cycle begins. Now, for students of religion, you might notice that the major religions of this day didn't all start on the same date or the same year or the same decade. They all start about 1,000 or so years apart. They are in a series. So when you're talking about earlier ones, what this writing is saying is this series that we have evidence of because of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and Baha'i, and not to mention Buddha, Hindu, all those other things too. They are all in the series of prophets, raised up prophets and revealed books as numerous as the creatures of the world. And we don't even know what they all are. Likewise, that means to the followers of this faith that, and it says it in another part, I don't have the quotation right in front of me, but I'll give you the quote, the link to the library, and you can go there and hunt around, you might be able to find it, that all of the indigenous peoples, the First Nations peoples, everywhere in the world, will have messages from God. It's not like they're sitting out there waiting for some imperialist country to show up and tell them what to believe. No one's been left out of this thing, ever. And it's not just this planet. Because you remember what I said. At most, we can say there was a time when this earth did not exist, and at the beginning, man was not present upon it, but he was somewhere, because we cannot say that there was a time when man was not. And God has never been without his servants, ever. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of civilization. That's a lot of religions that they've just told you about. Now, when I was in junior high school, I wrote a paper about Quetzalcoatl because I think my mom and dad had given me a book on Native American Indians, probably Natural History Museum book or something like that. And in researching the Aztecs, I learned that their writings describe 4 previous civilizations or worlds, each ending in some major catastrophe, fire, flood, earthquake, something. And if you had just come out of the floods of the Younger Dryas period, and you knew a bunch of stuff about a way of life that had been wiped out, you might inscribe it on stone and then bury it for posterity if you knew, right then and there, if you knew that this could happen again. And that seems to be what they did at Göbekli Tepe. Now, with all of the stuff that I'm telling you here, and all of the stuff in any of my articles, and anything that I might say on this channel, what I'm really trying to do is just give you the puzzle pieces that I have found. This is what I think is correct, as insofar as I'm aware of it. That doesn't mean it's the only thing that's correct, and it doesn't mean that other people don't know way more about it than I do. I'm just sharing my puzzle pieces with you because I want the people who know and the people who are interested in the subject to know that these writings exist and that you can go there and research these ideas for yourself. And that's kind of what Steve Istall is saying. You know, we're all in search of the truth. And in fact, the independent investigation of truth is one of the spiritual principles of these writings that I seem to be investigating. So, okay, I want to mention this too. Another quotation, "Witness to it is the holy tradition. Before all else, God created the mind. From the dawn of creation, it was made to be revealed in the temple of man." Now, this is my opinion. In the above, and the references before that to prophets, religions, etc., I think those references make it clear that we're talking about ancient civilizations, human minds, or the mind of man, not just human minds, but the mind of man with some kind of organized religion, some sort of faith revealed and delivered by a messenger of the Creator, rather than one-celled organisms or dinosaurs. These that where it says that God has always created religions and will continue to do so, and has always had servants and those who worship him and will always have them in forever. Okay, that's talking about civilization, not just life, not unintelligent life. Okay, next quote, because my opinions don't mean diddly. Quote, as the divine entity is eternal, the divine attributes are coexistent and co-eternal. The divine bestowals are therefore without beginning, without end. God is infinite. The works of God are infinite. The bestowals of God are infinite. So I'm thinking now about my 22nd cousins, the Dogon people of sub-Saharan Africa, and the Hopi of the Southwest, and others who I may or may not know of, too numerous to recount here. Their origin stories have them arriving from the stars, emerging from the earth, all of that sort of thing. And what those presume and presuppose is that they came from somewhere else that existed. They didn't just wake up one morning and fall out of the sky and land here on Earth. They came from someplace else that was ongoing, that was a working, living place. So it's not like, in the Bible it's been interpreted that there was a start to all of this. And these writings say that's metaphorical. The creation of the mind as the first thing God creation is metaphorical, because creation has always existed. And just like Adam and Eve will say that this was the first man made out of clay and Eve was made out of a rib and all of this stuff, it's an origin story. And Adam appears, I guess, either Adam appears as the first human way back, or it's a younger, dry story. Doesn't matter. I'm not a Bible scholar, but I think that the Adam and Eve story is pretty metaphorical too. That these are some of the first people after whatever the last cataclysm was, and that Adam may represent a messenger of God who began a new cycle. If I was going to go into a religious research, that would be something to research with these writings. That kind of gets off to a tangent concerning the time we need for lost civilizations. It's in there, but it's not directly on point, so I'm not going to go any further in that direction with this particular series. Okay, I've mentioned this one before too, another quotation. God's greatest gift to man is that of intellect or understanding. And using that, if I'm right, and mankind includes other creatures that are not Homo sapiens, then this next quote, which gets into the main message of this faith, actually, their primary mission is to alert everybody to the idea that mankind is one family. And they don't say human beings are one family. Again, they say mankind is one family. But in this quote, they are talking about human beings. They say the diversity in the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, where many different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord. If you meet those of different race, think of them as different colored roses growing in the beautiful garden of humanity and rejoice to be among them. And I would add that since it's mankind that is one, and mankind that they seek to unify, even if the people you find yourself among are 8 feet tall, covered in black hair, and they weigh about 800 pounds, or they're small and gray, or reptilian, or tall Nordic, the same thing. The mind of man is his reality, his thought, not his appearance. So, okay, as to evolution in appearance, evolutions in thought, experience, and what end all of this is proceeding towards, I've covered that in other articles. In particular, one of the first ones, why hasn't E.T. left already? And I wanted to talk more about time today because I was thinking that maybe the title, It's About Time, sounds like I'm upset with something and it's about time that happened. Well, maybe it is, but it was just a play on words, that it is about how much time has elapsed, and it's countless eons. So, that's the conclusion, I guess. There's been enough time for Graham Hancock to be right countless times. And I'll leave you with that. I recommend looking at some of the older episodes here. I'm not doing this to monetize the channel. As I said, I'm just doing this to share my puzzle pieces that might be useful for some people watching this. Probably not everyone. Not for everyone, I'm sure. And thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye.